Welcome back. You're watching Sunday edition here on KTN News. I still have my panel, political strategist Mutinda Kavemba, lawyer Stephen Anditi, political analyst Mark Bichach, and political risk analyst Dismas Mokwa. Now, this past week, we did also see the new cabinet nominees, cabinet secretaries, take oath of office. 9 of them were sworn in at State House, Nairobi. Here is President Kenyatta speaking to them shortly afterwards.
Cabinet that shall be selfless in service, unimpeachable, integrity, dedication to duty, and unmatched excellence, especially in bringing into fruition our Big Four agenda. High office is not a platform, and I repeat again, is not a platform for self-actualization and pandering to ego. Should you, at any time, feel the weight is too much, just say so. Just say so. There are other Kenyans ready to do the job. Sijui kama tumekubaliana wenzangu. Na nasema hivyo kwa heshima kwa kila mtu. Should you? Hamna haja tuendelee. Au ni namna gani? Ndio tuheshimiane.
All right. Dismas, do you think that is a right kind of pep talk, motivation by the president to his new cabinet secretaries?
Well, no. In my view, what the presidency should have done, and this is not about President Kenyatta, but about the presidency, is to give those cabinet secretaries key performance indicators so that at the end of the day we can actually measure as to whether or not they have delivered. Because you recall during the vetting process, you were unable to establish the thinking or the ideas of or any of those nominees. Because really, again, it was not a vetting. It was just political approval. So, for instance, when you're talking about Mr. Munyes in his new docket as cabinet secretary responsible for mining and petroleum, you actually do not understand his philosophies. Because the guys who are doing the vetting or the political approval had no guts to ask deep, penetrating questions so that we can actually establish what Munyes wants to do. And it's very strange that it's only Adan Duale who did ask any questions of sense. The rest of the guys, I think they were cowards. Now, based on the fact that we didn't get to know anything from the vetting or the political approval, one would have expected the president to give them key performance indicators, deliverables, which are publicized, so that we know at the end of the year whether or not these guys have delivered. But in the absence of that, one is unable to establish. Like, for instance, in the case of say Kiriako Tobiko should have told us or rather he should have been told, when you assume office, this is what you want to deliver. At the end of the first year, then we'll establish whether or not you've delivered. And then on a self-actualization, I'd like to take a divergent view from the president, that self-actualization is a very good thing. And if you think you're going to actualize, or rather you're going to get into self-actualization by serving the state, then that's a very good idea. But in the process of achieving or getting into self-actualization, please remain loyal to the state, remain loyal to the voter, remain loyal to the taxpayer. Do not use that office as a factor of production. Interestingly, a number of them gave out, they declared their wealth, some very funny figures. You know, somebody who's been a public servant his entire life saying that his net worth is 50 million Kenyan shillings and he owns a property in Lavington. That one doesn't make a lot of sense. But one hopes that these new cabinet secretaries are not going to use their offices as factors of production. They're going to serve Wanjiko and serve Wanjiko only.
All right. Mark, something that also came out is some dockets or some responsibilities or roles were lifted from some ministries to others. For example, housing, which was with the Ministry of Land, CS Karonese will not be in charge of housing. What is your take on such? And also international trade to the Foreign Affairs Ministry?
One of the things that the head of state has prerogative to do is to sit certain departments in different ministries as he sees fit. Kiriko Tobiko's actually ministry is quite interesting because it's been hived off of another one. But the point for me is this. In matters housing, for example, this is one of the key things that President Kenyatta has talked about in his Big Four agenda, because we have a housing deficit of nearly 500,000 houses a year. And that tells you year on year, I think our deficit right now is about 3-4 million housing units within the country. And that tells you that you need to be able to give sizable amounts of land to these houses. And also, let's not forget that you cannot extricate house ownership from lands. They're quite tied together. So the rhyme and reason of it makes sense. The key issue is the people who have these offices, are they going to show not only the competence to do these jobs, but the creativity and the grit to be able to overcome the obstacles that these ministries have. The Ministry of Lands, for example, is the only ministry not to have digitized many, many years after computers showed up on this earth. And that's because the people behind it, the famous cartels, as we call them in Kenya, are very much against digitizing, because if you digitize, then it becomes a bit harder for us to do what we used to do in the past.
And something else, to just add on to your point.
Yes.
Farida Karone was vetted as CS for lands and housing, and she, in her submission, she made very detailed plans on what she needs, especially for housing. But she was sworn in as a ministry for a CS for lands and what is it? Urban development or something?
Urban planning.
Physical planning. So how does that sit with that?
Well, to be honest with you, that's rather confusing. But
yes.
Urban planning and housing, it's not, you see, for me, as long as there's rhyme between land use and land allocation and what she's doing, it makes sense. However, she should have been vetted in the House for that particular issue. But then again, in this country, planning is a very weird thing, because if you go to Ruai today, you'd wonder whether there was ever a plan. So it is things that will she have, for me, it is the ability to have the grit and innovation to overcome the cartels and the culture that's been there. Right. You've got to be almost like Matiangi to be able to survive those particular ministries.
Wanawakili, what's stands out for you in the new look cabinet?
First of all, if I go to the president's sentiment, very beautiful words, abstract words, they mean absolutely nothing in concrete reality.
Well, the effect is that him to read the appraisal forms of the
No, I don't expect him to do that, but we need to know what are the deliverables. You know, you live there knowing at the end of maybe this financial year or the next financial year, these are the key performance indicators I'm supposed to deliver for the people of Kenya. I didn't see anything of substance there. And if you go back to the vetting, I remember watching the vetting, and for me it was a painful experience, a little bit like watching grass grow. You know, you cannot tell whether the grass is growing if you are fixated on watching it grow. I mean, we really need to change the way we are doing our business. Parliament did not actually take that role of vetting these CSS as seriously as they should have. The questions were pedestrian and very much pedantic. Yes.
Mark is itching to say something.
You know, it's funny how we need to learn as a country that we can't have our cake and eat it too. The fact of the matter is, the moment NASA dropped out from that vetting, that is what was going to happen. You cannot expect brothers and sisters to vet each other on how they're going to be members of a family. It cannot work. If you ask me whether my brother is tall, short, black, white, he is my brother and he'll be vetted and be part of my family. The constitution of vetting and how it's supposed to be has to include the opposition. And that is why the argument as put together by Dismas before, that it is a form of practicing democracy, is not true. You cannot complain about the results of your own exercise.
All right.
Okay, please give me a minute. If you go to the US...
I'm starting another long conversation.
No. If you go to the US, Trump is a Republican. But when he nominates people for office, they go to the Senate, they're vetted by, then the majority is Republicans. Still, the Republicans do very solid vetting. So it's unfair for Makia to suggest that the Jubilee members of the National Assembly have no capacity to vet. No, that's unacceptable.
That's unacceptable.
Let's get Mutinda's view on this, so that when the director
the question is this.
removes me from
the question is this.
Yes.
Do you think if the NASA members had taken part in the vetting, it would have been of a much better quality? That's the first
From drama,
question.
yes, it would have been a lot of drama because their views would be material. I mean, their numbers don't allow them to do anything.
No. Then when you say that, then it means that regardless,
Yes.
all views were immaterial, if that is the position you want to take. Because you have a role as an opposition. I want to give you an example of South Africa, where we have a very small party called EFF, led by Malema, that has been so effective that at times we even forget that there is the Democratic, the Democratic Party, the
Democratic
Alliance, yes. And they have much bigger numbers than the EFF. But in terms of playing the role as opposition in the South African parliament, the EFF has been very, very effective, notwithstanding their very small numbers.
They're less than 20.
So that is it. So the first thing is that NASA failed to play its role as an opposition in parliament. And that one, they have to be held accountable for that. Because whatever reasons they were given have nothing to do with the jobs they were sent to do in parliament. About the KPIs, the key performance indicators, I don't think we were expecting the president to outline that in his speech when he was swearing in his cabinet ministers. One thing we know is that he's given them the 4 pillars. And for those whose ministries have something to do with those 4 pillars, the job is well cut out. But when they start to get down to the job, it is going to be very clear, and to them and to the public with time, that this is exactly what will be expected of you from your ministry. I don't think the fact that the KPIs were not clearly outlined by the president in his speech is an indicator that he is not keen on that. That one I don't think, because that was just a very small ceremonial function to swear them in and then get down to the work. So as they get down to the work, it is going to be very clear what is expected of them from the president. And the president he came out quite strongly that this time people have to achieve whatever he has set as the targets within their ministries, and that those who won't, then they'll pave way for other Kenyans, because there are very many other. I think that was a good message coming from the president at the start of his second term.
Thank you. That's what we'll have to leave it, gentlemen. We're out of time. Cosmas on Twitter says, I'm waiting for Bichachi and Kavemba comments on appointment of a Standard 7 dropout as CS. They'll definitely defend the president. One here says, there's another one here from Bing Charlie, who says it's a rogue parliament riddled with deal makers and fraudulent individuals. And one here says that Tom James says Mokua has a wealth of wisdom, just like the man rubbishes arrest of Nandi Hills MP. Keter tells police they cannot effect an arrest against the MP without proper grounds. One here from James Corano says, Ben asked Steve, how long should one be in custody before being produced in a court of law? 2, under the circumstances, can one be denied bail? Does Keter fall under that? One here who says, Joseph Mutua says, listening to Dismas, it's as if he's already aware why Keter was apprehended. A lot of feedback. Thank you very much for your tweets and text and for watching the show. Thank you very much, gentlemen. A lot of issues to discuss. A lot of a busy week expected ahead. Dismas Mokua, political risk analyst Mark Bichache, lawyer Stephen Anditi, who will be involved in the LSK elections in the coming weeks. And Mutinda Kavemba, political strategist. Thank you so much. That's where we leave it on Sunday edition. This Sunday, be sure to join us every Sunday morning from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. as we dissect the big political stories in this republic. I'm Ben Kitili. Thanks for watching.